Karen, do you have any other questions? Because I'd like to get into, after you have any questions, some of the messages and, meaning and what we can do going forward after receiving our messages.
Well, I was actually hoping Barry could just talk a little bit about how his contact changed, Barry, how your contact changed once you had the acid rain download, because that shifted things, didn't it, for you somewhat?
Yeah, that was interesting. You want me to go over the experience?
Sure, you can. Yeah, of course.
Okay. I was in the 6th grade, and I had woke up one night. I was not in my home. I was on this craft, and the craft actually had a large screen in the middle of this room. And floating on the side is this entity, this insectoid that looks like a grasshopper with milky eyes. He's got on a uniform. And this is the individual that had come and played with me when I was a child. And although he didn't look exactly the same, I knew it was him, but he seemed more like a scientist, felt much more ancient. And immediately I started asking questions. I can only speak for myself. When I'm in the presence of non-humans and waking up on like some type of a field trip, which is exciting, but it's very startling. And I start immediately asking questions, and a lot of them would be answered telepathically before I could ask them. That's a little disconcerting too. Before I could formulate them in my mind, you got to get used to that, but my question is, I'm looking at this screen and I'm seeing like 3 ships out here, okay? And it looks like we're over some type of a snow pass, like a Himalayan or Rocky Mountain or something. And these ships look like they're sucking up clouds underneath them, like almost smog. And he's telepathically telling me that the acid rain is very bad for your planet. The metals and the microwaves are bad for us and bad for your planet. And he's implying that's one of the reasons they don't come out of those craft. That immediately I start asking questions like, is this a deception? I'm thinking, because I've never heard of acid rain. And he's kind of explaining that. And I'm starting asking, where are you from? And he's put in my mind, go 900 million light years out beyond the space-time continuum. And I didn't know what that meant. He'd been implying that anyway. That's true. I figured it out later on, but it took years. Anyway, so this experience in the back of this craft was an engine that I've also shown that I call the quasi-crystal engine, in another room in the back of this that I think takes us to a whole nother level when dealing with sentient technology. All right. But anyway, so fast forward this, maybe a few days later, not even a week, on a Friday, my teacher in the 6th grade would make us read this current events magazine called Scholastic News. And she'd often have somebody come up there and read like the main article, something terrifying, as you could well imagine. And I got selected this week. And I go up there to read this, and I'll never forget it, because on the front of the Scholastic News was the Statue of Liberty. And the article I had to read was about the Statue of Liberty parts of it being closed down due to being reconstruction and repainting from damage due to from acid rain. When I was reading that and I see the word acid rain, I like screamed it out and everybody started laughing. I think I got in trouble. But it just, the fact is, the way I saw how much this had crossed over into real, what happened to me is real. It's a physical experience, so it's real. But the fact you don't have any little trinket, so you can't prove anything, it seems so, and it's hard to have a frame of reference for what you're experiencing also. It just makes things really tough if you're a kid, if you're an adult, whatever the case. Anyway, point being, that is when it crossed over in my life. I knew for sure that this was very real, and now, so my next thing was, I'm gonna try to grab some technology, something that I can prove this, but it didn't work that way. And my experiences stopped after that, from the ages of about 12 and a half to right around 17. And then they started up again, really intense. So.
Thank
Very
you.
Good. Did you have any other questions for now, Karen?
No, go. Let's go with what you've got, Chris.
Okay. So basically, we've each received messages from contact. My message was pretty direct, that the planet is in trouble, basically. That we can't rely on any, political leader or anything like that. That we have to make changes ourselves, and it's going to take all of us. It's going to take a lot of people, but it's possible. I was given the message that these light dark battles happen throughout time. And I was also told that the light is always, coming out on top. So that made me feel a little better. The entity that I spoke with, we talked about this last time, Barry, was one of the main things is they're trying to get rid of what Karen called earlier the love frequency. That it's trying to be extinguished from this planet, and that's one of the most important things is to bring back this love frequency. And he also called it Christ consciousness, which has nothing to do with religion or Jesus or anything like that. It's a state of spirituality, and that was my main message, that we need to revive this. We need to bring back this love frequency to the world that is dying out, and it's being taken over by technology. There's a form of technology worship that is trying to be pushed upon the masses. And it's also at the same time extinguishing this love frequency, which is not a good thing. So that's my main takeaway from my whole experience, is that we each have a job to do. If we don't like the direction we see things going on our planet, we have to use whatever talents, whatever thoughts, whatever. We have to use our voices, our minds, everything to express that we don't consent to what's going on, and doing everything we can to make our changes around us and then move from ourselves outward. So that was my message to, I guess, to keep me going, to keep doing what I'm doing right now and keep getting information out and keep having guests like yourself to share this information. So I'm just wondering, what kind of messages, like big picture messages, have you gotten, and are they similar?
Yeah. I think that's the first primary has been the earth thing. And I can say everything I've seen them doing is always revolving around the earth, and I think as far as humanity, us individual contactees, some of them, depending on the beings we're dealing with, are trying to awaken us to our soul life memories, I think, especially dealing with, not just places that we hear about so much in the new age circles and ufology, Pleiades and Ceres and always these places. We have to understand that galactic wise, cosmological, we're up to trillions of galaxies, trillions. That means a lot of our experiences are extragalactic, and we're not hearing about that at all. That's something that kind of, troubled me a lot, was I wasn't hearing about the beings that I was dealing with, or about the areas of space that are coming through to me. You know what I mean? It's things like that. So I hopefully I'm answering your question there. It's that. So I think in that way, our free will is very much a true thing, that they don't interfere so much. Because I would try to think messages out in these contacts, like what's going to happen, and never will they give me any future scenarios, but they've showed me the past and said that this won't happen again. I'm seeing something like Earth, like an ash or something similar to that. So I think that we need to be aware of really what wars have really transpired here in the last billion years this planet's been alive. So I think that that's an answer to it. I know definitely, though, I've even seen a ship that was like giving light to the Earth of a type. And I think the same light that they're trying to give to us, I once that entity coming through with this stuff telling me about something called transonial enlightenment for the human race. There's these concepts like that they give to you and download. I hear the download word a lot, but just a communication to me, a channel or open deal. But I don't know. So I would say yes, as far as focusing on the earth is the primary thing that's come through my experiences, as well as remembering who we are. I think galactically, even earthbound, some of us have been here several times, but we got a problem. We're carrying these, I know people call them contracts, but I call them traumas from past lives. It's real bad here. And then we got the issue that, you know, more than half our population doesn't even believe in past lives. So how do you combat that? How do you combat something else that we threw out last time? And this is where I think the Christ consciousness thing, and Chris, I was blown away that that came up last time. Of all the interviews I've done, I don't really discuss that. And the truth is, all these beings have always used those terms with me. And I always, because I have no religion, so my first, oh no, not the brainwashing stuff, you know, but it's not. It's beyond social economic religion. It's a frequency of the creator that we can access. And, you know, they've alluded to me, there's a frequency even higher than that. I don't know what it is, but I mean, there's much more I think we can be. But just accessing the Christ consciousness has stopped me from ever being assaulted in any of these experiences. I've never had a sexual connotation to any of them. You know what I mean? They've been very much just trying to keep my cookies and not throw up due to the
Right.
difference. The inside and the outside of the ship are not in the same dimension. So when you're on board some of these craft in our third dimensional body, it can apparently support us, but there's some effects that happen with it. Anyway, sir, I'll shut up. I'm going way too far.
No, that's actually, I want to talk about the ships because I find that a fascinating aspect. Do you have anything, Karen, before we get into that?
I only want to add that when I was having a lot of my experiences, when it was, I kind of hit a high point in my life, I didn't have human language for what I was experiencing. And it wasn't until I found out about a kind of a loose but broad perspective on the Christ consciousness that it came right into focus. So rather than, and no disrespect to the Christians, but rather than me having to worship a man named Christ who was on earth and try to follow him, understanding that he had Christ consciousness. And so we emulate that level of awareness. And then I also believe that our minds, bodies, souls, our planet, everything is also technology. And so we can change reality by changing ourselves. So my big teaching and learning was to look after my own sovereignty and be responsible for the decisions I make, for my body temple, for my health, for all these things. And it's been a fascinating ride because my reality has shifted and shifted and shifted again in ways I never dreamed possible just through taking my own personal responsibility. So I don't want to take too much away from this because I want to get onto what Chris is wanting to talk about is with the ships and stuff. But I just wanted to say that ditto. I'm also wondering if anyone before we move on from our viewers has made a comment or anything that we could slip in here before we get going again.
Yeah, let me check the chat here. Let's see. Let's see. Does Barry have his own YouTube channel? You do, correct?
Yeah. Sadly, I don't have any cool handles. It's just under Barry Littleton on YouTube.
Okay.
There are about 238 videos there. If you go into the playlist, a lot of different things there, especially concerning my experiences. I show a lot of the sketches I've had done by Kasara on a lot of those videos. So it kind of helps illustrate the experience a little more than me just talking. So.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do have another question. This is from Raised by Giants. Thank you, Ryder. Does Barry have any info on the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction tomorrow and how it could affect our consciousness to shift us into a positive timeline?
Interesting question.
Yeah.
Okay. Something that just shocks me interesting about this, and this is not something I'm an expert on, but technically, all right, this only occurs every 800 years, right? And I understand that's one thing, as well as what it may do as far as gravitational perturbance in the solar system. But something interesting, I was talking with a friend of mine named Halbert. He runs something called the Uranta Book News, the Uranta News. And he's really intense on that book. Now, I personally will just be open. I have a few problems with that book, all right? But once I put my personal bias aside and try to really look at the information and get the value out of that. But something he was talking about he was talking about two dates. This has been several weeks ago. He started talking about December 14th and then also specifically December the 21st, and how that book is saying that that's when Yeshua was supposed to return. That's an indication of his returning. You know, for me, I think more maybe about just possible ascended masters of different type appearing again on this planet, as opposed to one individual. But I just find that interesting that that book seems to have this specifically this date correlated in there. I mean, I had not looked at it intense enough to him to know that part of it. So just something that I keep hearing about this date overall. So it'll be interesting to see. Are we going into a different time, a different space, a different, I don't know.
Yeah, it's always interesting because I mean, so far from what I've experienced with people calling on dates is the date will come and then the next day will come and it'll be the same thing. But you know, you never know. Something could happen. That's just my own experience with people who set dates for big events and things like that, you know.
The younger audience may not remember, but we went through that Y2K thing.
Yeah.
And everybody said, oh gosh, what do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen? I say that what's going to happen is you're going to go to work and you're going to go to sleep and you're going to wake up and you're going to go back to work. You just wake up, go back to work. That's what I think's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be a destruction of the entire computer system. But there's little things like that. There are always these dates, you know, and I know there's a great deal of people that are so proud to announced that the virus thing is going on. All right. And, you know, that's been something that's always been trying to be introduced to the population. You're not that psychic on that. Okay. You could go all the way back to things like, there was a movie, it was a Dustin Hoffman, Outbreak. And when the whole actual Ebola thing happened, how there were different strains of that mysteriously were coming out. You know, there's been several different viruses for longer than that, going all the way back. That's an attempt to ruin our world. And it's finally been successful. But yet I'm not hearing about things like some of these technologies like we might have seen. I've seen healing technologies on board these craft, but that part of the experience, contact experience, is not being explored. You know, healing technologies such as things that deal with high plasma or even the possibility of sound ablation of viruses. And I don't want to get too far on this, but when you actually technically look at a virus, the structure of it, especially one that caught my attention, bacterial phage is what it's called, a virus that attacks bacteria. When you look at it, it looks completely alien. And when we start getting into type 3, type 4 civilizations that have actually done things not just on the nano, but on the pico, and have advanced that type of society that may have made a Dyson sphere around their solar system, they're going to be doing inner space. But if they're going to send out self-replicating machines to attack a race, you're looking at something right there. To me, viruses themselves. I'm not saying that's true, but just looking at them scientifically, it's very odd and what they do. And now we know a lot about these self-replicating machines.
It is a very interesting thought. Yeah, definitely. It's something to look at. Now
creepy,
earlier,
but
it is creepy. Now you mentioned earlier something that really kind of caught my ear. You said the outside of these ships may be in our physical dimension, but once you get inside, you could be in a whole different dimension. I've heard accounts of abductees, contactees that will be outside all of a sudden, or they'll float up to a ship, and then they're in this massive, it looks like not only a room, but just open, you know, for miles and miles, and it doesn't match the size of the ship that they saw before they were inside. What do you think is going on in there inside these ship environments?
You know, that happened to me. This craft, on my first of my adult onset experiences, this golden then blue beam takes me in, and the first room I go into looks to me almost like a cargo bay. It's big enough to put what I seem to see in the sky in there, I would swear. You know, and let alone the other rooms that seem to be in there that were maneuvering around me. And I don't know what this says about geometrical spacing, but it's a trip. And, you know, it takes things to someone like me started getting into Doctor Who, you know, because the TARDIS, quote unquote, is bigger on the inside than the out. and they call it transdimensional engineering. And that sounds like a joke in science fiction crap. But when you really start getting into scientifically temporal engineering, what is that? And I'll say something about this craft. Okay, it's interesting because I've been recently had some scientists wanting to talk about this craft. At first, it appeared to be, I wish I had a sketch, it appeared to be almost a Pleiadian type of craft, as they call them, or Venetian, kind of similar to the one George Adminsky had seen, somewhat. And then this thing starts morphing on me. It starts flashing and morphing and turns into these things that look like these crystals connected like a molecule floating in the sky until it finally was gone. And it's emitting a light. And what it did to me perceptually to see this, it really kind of messed me up. I mean, I would try to research it. I couldn't find any contactees or experiencers that was talking about this or seeing anything similar. Maybe Ezekiel's wheel, but that's still not what I saw. You know what I mean? So that right there was saying for a long time, I was trying to understand what in the world could that craft possibly do that on the outside, but I was inside of it. And when I'm watching it there, I can still see the technology and some of the beings, and the information is still there. It hasn't started fading yet, as these tend to do after the experience is over. So that right there, made me evaluate what is it that I'm seeing inside this craft. I saw in this craft, I'll give you an example. I've got all illustrations of this on my YouTube channel, and I got a big Patreon channel that I've got far more videos on there than I do on YouTube. Anyway, this craft in every room had these things that look like, to me, they look like almost eggs, like glass on the outside of them, but in the back of them was like a metal sheet, and it went into the wall actually, and these almost mushroom fungus type of a wall that shows that these craft are organic, at least the ones I've been on board. And inside of these eggs, there was like this real thick mist, thicker than the mist that you're breathing on the decks of the craft. And inside of that are these lights, different light configurations. Some look like condensed light, some look like plasma balls, things like that. I thought for a minute that these were probably power sources I was looking at, these eggs, different sized one in every room I was in. And I noticed a lot of time these beings that are half phased out, they're paying attention to these eggs also. And I'm trying to examine one and touching it and stuff. Feels kind of glass-like to me. I find out later when I'm about to throw up and pass out in one of these rooms, two of these lights emerge from this tube, from this egg, and attached to me. They're like attached kind of to me, like to my biofield, and they're stopping me from passing out. That's when I realized, well, these aren't power sources. These are crew members, non-corporeal crew members. So what I'm describing to you is what is it really like to be on board a multi-dimensional ship? It ain't like Star Trek. Sorry, it isn't like Star Trek. Sulu in over there, Spock in over here. I give you a much better story. It's completely different. And along with the sickness you feel on board, so that says a lot about how the outside of the craft is able to exist in our dimension to be seen, and apparently enough materialized density enough for us to be sustained there. But yet it's from somewhere else, a different dimension. So even when I saw this transformation into this crystal and then it went out, that's very well what this craft that pre-programmed to where it knows it's going, is sharing an imprint that it's going to look like in its destination point. Possibility that takes us into quantum hologram of consciousness and things like that.